Number one of your officers approaches you in confidence and advises you that a fellow co-worker of his, who was under your command, lately has been showing up late for calls, stays off on calls for excessive periods of time, appears to have bloodshot eyes and a slurry voice, and he's concerned. How would you handle the situation?
This is a possible substance abuse issue coupled with a performance deficiency issue. Here's how I would address both. The first step I will take, is to meet with the complaining officer and determine if in fact this officer is having this deficiency on this date. Due to the fact that the officer has a possible substance abuse issue, I'm not going to have them meet me at the station. I'm going to review the heartbeat shift roster and see where the officer is at this time and go meet with them. Upon meeting with the officer, I will determine whether or not they're under the influence of drugs and or alcohol. If I determine that they are under the influence, I'm going to relieve them of their duty weapon and direct another officer to drive them back to the station so I can meet with them and explain why they're being sent home from work. I will then direct an officer to bring the officer home. I'll contact the XO and ensure that the shift vacancy is filled for the remainder of the shift. I'm going to document my preliminary findings in a memo and forward them to my lieutenant for further review. I'm then going to review the second allegation against this officer, which is that their performance has decreased while on the street. Now, as a sergeant, I would have already recognized these deficiencies and corrected them. However, in this situation, it is possible that something could have slipped through the cracks. When the officer returns to work, I will meet with the officer and explain my expectations are for the shift. I would also conduct an investigation through the heartbeat shift roster to see how long the officer is staying off on calls and if it's longer than other officers that are there, as this program that we use, our CAD program, marks the times that officers put themselves en route, arrive on calls, and clear them. I will also review the officers' reports and note any deficiencies on them. I'm going to take these findings and explain them to the officer and explain to him what my expectations are for the shift and for the officers that are under my command. I'm also going to refer the officer to the Employee Assistance Program as if I determine that they do in fact have an underlying issue, whether it be something at home or if it's a substance abuse issue. Now, I know that in most cases, substance abuse issues are a result of another problem. We need to find what the root of the underlying issue is in order to correct the issue and make sure that the officer's performance becomes up to standard. I'm going to also review the officer's personnel file and see if there's been any accusations or sustained complaints of this in the past. Not only is this an issue for the agency, but it's also an issue for the public. It erodes trust if an officer shows up with bloodshot eyes or alcohol on their breath. This is completely unacceptable in the Hartford Police Department or any law enforcement agency, in my opinion. I'm also going to review the code of conduct and determine what the violation that this officer has occurred is for being intoxicated on duty. I'm then going to direct, if they are in fact under the influence on duty, like we stated before, I'm losing myself here. Can we pause the video? No? Okay. I'm going to recommend that discipline is sustained. This will be forwarded to the department advocate, who administers discipline in the Hartford Police Department, along with the chief of police. If the officer is suspended, upon their return to work, I'm going to meet with them and explain to them that this is a learning process and that we don't want this issue to continue. I'm going to follow up with the officer on a regular basis to ensure that their performance is up to standard. I'll do this by reviewing the officer's reports, checking on him before roll call to ensure that there's no substance abuse issues when they're at work, and also conducting periodic field inspections of the officer when they're on duty. My goal is for the officer to have a successful plan in correcting whatever the deficiency is, as we don't want to lose a good officer to a problem like this. I've seen in the past where officers have had issues before, whether it be things at home, and they come back to work and they're a successful employee within the Hartford Police Department. This is my goal for the officer. I'm also going to take this as a learning experience for myself and conduct roll call training with the officers under my command to ensure that everyone knows what my expectations are for the shift. And if they have any questions, that they can come to me with them. And that concludes my answer.
It's a fantastic answer. Extremely thorough, very organized. You started off at about a 9 for delivery. You then slipped to an 8. You then totally fell apart. You got back on the Tour de France bicycle with your injuries. You continued pedaling, but at that point you were like at a 7. And at the very end you end up to an 8. So you were, in terms of the rating of how you come across, that's my impression of you, okay? You did say I'm going to several times, but we knew that was going to evaporate immediately. You'll see in the video what I'm talking about. All right, good job.